like the ground zero is always honesty. This ability to start, even if it's in a very small way, talking about what's going on with you, what had been going on with you, what you actually want.
You're listening to Make Some Noise podcast, episode number 509 with guest Laura McKowen. Welcome to Make Some Noise podcast, your guide for strategies, tools, and insight to empower yourself. I'm your host, Andrea Owen, global speaker, entrepreneur, life coach since 2007, and author of 3 books that have been translated into 18 languages and are available in 22 countries. Each week, I'll bring you a guest or a lesson that will help you maximize unshakable confidence, master resilience, and make some noise in your life. You ready? Let's go. Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the podcast. First, I need to apologize. I want this to be a professional podcast. However, I don't know how to use the machinery. Equipment is the word I'm looking for. I don't know how to use the equipment that I have. This is just embarrassing, but I tell you guys everything. I have this fancy, expensive podcasting microphone because I am a professional. However, I don't know how to use all these buttons and knobs and things. And somehow they got messed up, I think, when I unplugged it. And I was listening back to some of my intros and even some of my interviews. I'm like, why does my sound terrible? This is not okay. So I beep, boop, boop. I touched some buttons and I made some changes and I feel like it's better. So my apologies if I sound like shit in your ear. I hope I don't. I have a couple of quick announcements, totally switching gears. One is that if you love the podcast, or even if you just like it, I would be so grateful if you would. I put out a survey. It's at andreaowen.com/survey. And I'm asking you questions like, hey, who do you want to see on the podcast? What are the topics that you want? Do you like these themes? Or do you like it when I just put out whatever rad guest I come across? Do you want more mini-sodes? Do you want more interviews? Do you want me to stand on my head on Instagram and recite the alphabet backwards? What do you want? Tell me what you want. As much as I like to think that this podcast is all about me, it's really about you. I want to be of service to you and put out the best stuff possible. So you love it and you get so much out of it. So please, I'm also doing a giveaway. I'm giving away books if you fill out the survey in a drawing. andreaowen.com/survey, please. And thank you. The other announcement is that if you are interested in doing the Daring Way work with me in a group at an affordable price, I suggest that you get on my email list. I am opening doors to the Daring Way group program online, and it will start running in April. So we're going to open registration in late March. And if you're not on my email list, because they're the people that get the notifications first. I love you guys too, but a lot of y'all don't listen to the podcast on the day that it comes out. I don't either. So if you're on my email list, you will be the first to know. And I'm also doing an early bird discount. And so you want to get in with that price. And also I have to limit it to 14 women. So if you want to make sure that you get on my email list, you'll get all my emails in your promotion folder, the folder that nobody looks in. So you might want to look at least around that time. andreaowen.com/free to get on my email list. All right. Today we have one of my favorite people, Laura McKowen, is back on the show. She's been on the show before. If you are a avid listener, you know. Let me tell you a little bit about her. Laura McKowen is the best-selling author of We Are the Luckiest, The Surprising Magic of a Sober Life, and founder of the Luckiest Club. Laura has been published in the New York Times. She's been featured in The Atlantic, The Wall Street Journal, The Today Show, and her second book, Push Off From Here, 9 Essential Truths to Get You Through Life and Everything Else, is what we're talking about today on the show. And stick around. Even if you do not struggle with alcohol, she and I talk about more than just that. And that's really what her book is about, is just getting through life. We all could use some more of that. So without further ado, here is Laura. Laura, welcome back.
Thank you.
It's been a while since you've been on the show.
Like years, right?
I think it has been years. I forget that I've been having this podcast for so long. And so
yeah,
there's so many episodes.
You have. You have stayed the course.
I have.
Impressed.
I was an early adopter and I've committed, which is surprising considering, my past of addiction and just being all over the place. I'm like, that I can commit to anything. But I'm excited to have you on, partly because you have a new book and partly because we're doing the recovery theme and talking to people in recovery. And I love to talk to people who have years under their belt. Mm-hmm. So can you, I'm going to link to your other episodes in the show notes where you go into more detail about your story, but can you kind of just give like a brief synopsis about your sobriety and really like sort of what was the turning point to make you stop drinking? Yeah.
Of course, there wasn't just one, but there is a moment that that made me realize this isn't going to work anymore. I have to get sober. And it was leaving my daughter in a hotel room overnight at my brother's wedding in 2013. So almost 10 years ago. And that, because it was public, my family knew, they were there staying in the hotel. It wasn't, most of my consequences were I just knew about them, right? Or maybe, my ex-husband, but it was my family and it was my daughter, which was, I just still thought as bad as things were, I wasn't going to put her in danger.
Yeah. How old was she at the time? Wasn't she like before? Yeah. I thought she was like 4 or 5.
Yeah. She was a baby. Mm-hmm. So that was my turning point. That was 2013. Shortly thereafter, a week or two after, I went to my first 12-step meeting, and that all started me on, okay, this has to be over. I didn't want it to be over, and then I eventually got sober in 2014, September. So it took a year or so.
Okay, this is probably like a super broad question, but I want to keep these episodes kind of broad because I don't want people to listen and be like, well, I don't have a problem with alcohol.
Right.
But I know that you and I have had many conversations about drinking for many of us is just like the last symptom or one of the symptoms that kind of flares up and we realize causes a problem. And I look at it as kind of like a red flag. I think very few people see it at the time, and it's in retrospect that we look back and look at our patterns. So in retrospect, what were some other things that were going on in your life, whether it was with relationships or work or whatever, or other substances where you had to take a look at it and not just kind of the thing that you had to stop doing, but like, what was the underlying issue?
I've obviously thought about this a lot and written about it a lot. I know that the beginning starts with not being able to tell the truth about what was going on with me for a very young age. It wasn't safe. It wasn't going to be received by my parents. And really just having such an intense fear of being rejected for that. And that was real. It wasn't, like most people in our generation, our parents really didn't talk, at least mine didn't talk about anything. And not only that, but you need to pretend like everything's fine. And not even just that either. Like my parents, they got divorced when I was 6. I can see now, like they both had a lot of issues themselves. And I, for whatever reason, assumed the role of parenting.
Yeah.
Or being okay. Everything's fine. I'm good. Everything's fine. Don't worry about me. And that's the root of it. Like it's this fundamental sort of dishonesty. It came from a place that it wasn't because I was, a bad kid. It just came from a place of wanting to get my needs met, like it does for most people. So it was just, there was a split early on. It was like, this is who I'm going to pretend to be, and this is who I actually am. And psychologically, that split is really dangerous for anybody.
I feel you. I had such a similar experience and same, like did not realize it until much later. Like not only for my family was there like the not talking about things and pretending that things were okay, but we made fun of people who did go to therapy. And it was not only was it taboo, but like those people were beneath us.
Yeah.
I think that's really common.
Like they just can't handle their lives. It's
right.
so sad.
Like we're better than that.
Get a grip.
Like we're smarter, we're stronger. And then also I wonder, I have no idea, just kind of throwing this out. Like, I wonder if there are some people who just have a really low tolerance for that, like feeling like stuff going on in the family and like nobody's talking about it, but we're too young to even realize what's really going on. I wonder if some people just have more resiliency to that. And then other people just can't.
I didn't. I still have a really hard time tolerating discomfort from people around me and not wanting to just fix
it. Yeah.
And not assuming it's my responsibility to fix it.
Right.
And that if I can't fix it, there's something wrong. I'm doing something wrong. I'm failing. That's really deep.
It's even uncomfortable for me to just like talk about it now. Like even like my stomach clenches up, like I have a physiological reaction to it. Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, I'm thinking about the audience and I want to ask you, like, what advice do you have? Because I know you work with a lot of people who want to start their sobriety journey, but they don't know where to start. And maybe these are people who they might not necessarily have a problem with alcohol. Maybe it's relationships. They can't seem to not be in like an anxious attachment style relationship, or they're right. very codependent. Like what advice do you have for them? Because I think people just kind of don't know where to start. It feels
I think that always the first thing is to start to tell the truth somewhere. For a lot of people, and for me, I started to do it on the page first, writing. That's not enough, but it's a good start. It's a good place to start. It can be really hard, even though it's just you, it can be really hard to do that because once we put something onto paper, it seems like it makes it more real.
Yeah.
It hurts. It's uncomfortable. It brings things up, but there is really power in that. And I always tell people, like, if you are so afraid of putting something on paper because someone else might read it, just burn those pages or destroy them. That's a really good place to start. But it always has to be, I think, like if you're actually going to heal, you're actually going to face things, you have to do that with another person or a group of people. Mm-hmm. But a good place to start and a free place to start is to start writing things down.
Shopify's already taken the cash register online, helping millions sell billions around the world. But did you know that Shopify can do the same thing at your retail store? Give your point of sale system a serious upgrade with Shopify. With Shopify, you get a powerhouse selling partner that effortlessly unites your in-person and online sales into one source of truth. Track every sale across your business in one place and know exactly what's in stock. Connect with customers inline and online. Shopify helps you drive store traffic with plug-and-play tools built for marketing campaigns from TikTok to Instagram and beyond. Get hardware that fits your business. Take payments by smartphone, transform your tablet into a point of sale system, or use Shopify's POS Go mobile device for a battle-tested solution. Sign up for a $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/noise, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/noise to take your retail business to the next level today. Shopify.com/noise. I have definitely been in that place where my paycheck ran out before the next one got here. Life doesn't happen bi-weekly, so why should payday? The money you earn can be in your hands today with Earnin. Earnin is an app that gives you access to your pay as you work, up to $100 per day or up to $750 per pay period. Just download the Earnin app and verify your paycheck. Then access up to $100 a day as you work and leave an optional tip. Any money you access plus tips are automatically repaid from your next paycheck. You can use Earnin to pay for a girls' night out, a last-minute gift for a loved one, or even summer camp for the kids. Make Earnin a part of your financial routine and join Earnin's over 3.5 million customers who say things like, when I think about Earnin, I think about financial stability, security. It gives me a lot of peace of mind. Download Earnin today, spelled EARNIN, in the Google Play or Apple App Store. When you download the Earnin app, type in Noise under podcast when you sign up. It really, really helps the show. Noise under podcast. Subject to your available earnings, location, daily max, and pay period max. See earnin.com/TOS for details. Earnin is a financial technology company, not a bank. Bank products are issued by Evolve Bank and Trust, member FDIC. Start writing things down. I encourage people to like password protect it or burn it or throw it in the trash. I'm going to whip through your chapter titles for Push Off From Here, which is also in the show notes. Laura's new book, everybody. It's not your fault. It is your responsibility. It is unfair that this is your thing. This is your thing. This will never stop being your thing until you face it. You can't do it alone. Only you can do it. You are loved. We will never stop reminding you of these things. So chapter 5, this will never stop being your thing until you face it. I feel like that points to what you were just talking about. Am I right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's the most practical, actionable chapter in the book. I talk about 5 sort of core practices of sobriety. And again, sobriety is not just about alcohol or substances. It's about the capacity to sort of, I think, be honest and present with yourself in your life. Mm-hmm. And one of the core practices is honesty. And nothing gets better until we can find a place to be honest, to feel safe being honest. I mean, for a lot of people too, it's a matter of safety. They don't feel safe being honest for good reasons. 100%. So I lied and I lied to every therapist I had until probably because I just couldn't stomach it. I just could not allow myself to. I was so ashamed and embarrassed. And
were you worried about, this is so interesting. So I'm going to ask you more questions about that. Were you more worried about their reaction, or was it even before that, just the words coming out of your mouth was just too much to handle?
I had such a deep need to look okay and to look smart, to look like I wasn't stupid or weak. And so that was like the driving, and I didn't know that. I didn't see that till much later. I still have that in me.
Same.
I can perform really well in a therapist's office. And so it was that. And then I definitely didn't believe like this is a judgment-free zone. Like I didn't buy it.
Like I hear those words, but I don't there's no such thing.
I just couldn't get myself to say the words. It's a practice. That's what people, a lot of times don't understand, is that honesty is really a practice. It's not something we either are or aren't. And there are always very good reasons, unless, you're truly sociopathic or psychopathic. There's really good reasons why you withhold the truth.
Yeah.
And sometimes it becomes such a habit that you don't even know you're doing it. You don't even realize you're lying.
Yeah, I've certainly been there. And I have never really thought about, the whole safe place thing or judgment-free zone. I think very few people grow up where they see any evidence of that.
Totally.
They might go to therapy, or their parent might say that, or they have a friend, but they have probably so much evidence of that not being true, not being safe. And maybe they've tried it. I mean, we've all told a secret to someone, like starting in elementary school, and had that secret be told. Or, I mean, I remember when I was in coach training, and I was like in my early 30s at that point, I shared something with one of the other trainees, and she gasped. And I was like,
okay, never going to do that again.
You remember all of those instances, or even just a nuance, like a tiny body movement of a therapist that we may be making up is judgment or something, discomfort on their end. Like we become so attuned to other people's body movements and facial expressions. Like I get that, like that whole, and I think especially for girls, like we get just masterful at putting on this proving, performing, perfecting, pleasing.
Yep. Totally. It was so strong in me, this need to not look weak. That's what it was for me mostly, this need to not appear weak. That I had bad therapists too. Like the first couple that I went to, the first, I remember one of the first ones, I got pregnant with my husband, we weren't planning to. I didn't want to. I was like having an affair. I was really fucked up. And I found out I was pregnant one morning and then canceled my appointment with her. That it was a couple hours later, supposed to be a couple hours later after I found out. And she said, well, why do you think that's an emergency? Like, why do you think like this isn't, you have to keep your commitment to me. And so it just felt like there was no humanity in there. And like, I sort of get it now. But I was so like, that was one of many examples where I felt like, fuck, I can't be myself. I can't have any sort of weakness or falter in any way without it being, and she quit on me after that.
Without being judged. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or assumptions being made.
And the bottom line is I just felt like such shit about myself. I was just so, I was very afraid, very hypersensitive.
When you're in that place, it's hard to have any kind of resiliency or like self-compassion. Like
completely. And I was drinking at that time a lot, like really, really drinking a lot too. And that always set me up to be more anxious, more ashamed, more, your brain actually changes in ways that keep you in that sort of hypervigilance state. So
in regard to this book, because the subtitle is 9 Essential Truths to Get You Through Sobriety and Everything Else. Like, what are some other sort of behaviors, if you will, that people have come to you for, or that you've seen people be helped by, that maybe where drinking isn't sort of their nemesis, where I think people listening to this, where it might not be drinking, but it might very well be relationships.
Yeah, relationships are almost always in there. If we have a good amount of dysfunction in any area of our lives, our relationships suffer. Right. And so in the relationship wound is usually the core wound. We have attachment issues. We have just, trauma that keeps us from having healthy relationships, being able to relate to others in an honest way. So that I now see that as always like the ground zero. Eating disorders or disordered eating, stuff with food, body stuff, other, there's a million process addictions and substance addictions are only one small part of it, but it's all the same and it's almost always rooted in trauma. Yeah. And so how it shows up is almost irrelevant, Yes, I had to specifically deal with the thing around alcohol, but now 8 years sober, I've seen like, it shows up in multiple places. This need to escape oneself, this inability to sit with what's going on inside of me or to sit with what's going on with other people and not take it on. I had very anxious attachments romantically, not with friendships, but very anxious attachments and love addiction. And that was like a major swirl. I look at it as, all these things are behaviors that we create to survive and to withstand pain that we're feeling, or not even just pain. It's just an inability to be with our own energy. Like I drink just as much for the like upper register of things than I did for pain, because I have like this energy. There's a lot of energy in me, and it felt very, from a young age, felt very unmanageable. And and it builds up and it builds up and it builds up. And then of course it requires relief. Like I played sports in high school and that helped, but I didn't have healthy ways to use this or even understand it. I just didn't. And so all that stuff has to go somewhere. And so we develop these either substance addictions, process addictions, ways of coping that work in some way. Like they're really intelligent.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking. I'm like, it works until it doesn't.
Yeah, they're really intelligent actually. But they have consequences, and ultimately the pain becomes too great. And so we have to figure out how to be otherwise and develop healthier things. And I think that always comes back, like the ground zero is always honesty, this ability to start, even if it's in a very small way, talking about what's going on with you, what had been going on with you, what you actually want. I mean, if you think about women, especially, and you said, we are trained to be performers, pleasers, helpers above all. And there's this fundamental disconnect that can happen because there's nothing wrong with helping. There's nothing wrong with caring about what people, being attuned to people's needs. But when it causes you to abandon yourself and make choices that are not in line with what you actually want or what you actually need, what you actually value, that pain is massive. And we don't escape it. That's the thing. We can't ultimately, it catches up with us always. I look at it as all the same. I mean, I've had people say, this has helped me get through an eating disorder. This helped me get through grief. This has helped me get through one of my kids being addicted, divorce. We have the premise of my first book is we all have things. Every single one of us, none of us escapes that. My thing happened to be alcohol or the sort of primary one that was going to kill me was alcohol, but we all have things.
Fast forward to the end of 2024 and think about your goals. What can you do right now to give yourself the best chance of succeeding? If you want to learn a new language, you absolutely should get Babbel. Don't pay hundreds of dollars for private tutors or waste hours on apps that don't really help you speak the language. Babbel's quick 10-minute lessons are handcrafted by over 200 language experts to help you start speaking a new language in as little as 3 weeks. Babbel's designed by real people for real conversations. Studies from Yale, Michigan State University, and others continue to prove Babbel is better. One study found that using Babbel for 15 hours is equivalent to a full semester at college. Now it's so easy to speak simple conversation phrases with the guy that takes care of my lawn without having to consult language apps. Here's a special limited time deal for our listeners. Right now, get up to 60% off your Babbel subscription, but only for our listeners at babbel.com/noise. Get up to 60% off at babbel.com/noise, spelled BABBEL.com/noise. Rules and restrictions may apply. Today's podcast is sponsored by MIDI Health. Ladies, are you over 40 like me and dealing with hot flashes, insomnia, brain fog, moodiness, some vaginal dryness, or weight gain? Don't just accept it as part of aging. These symptoms are often linked to hormonal changes during perimenopause and menopause. At MIDI Health, they get it. Their experts know what you're going through and how to help. MIDI clinicians are menopause specialists offering safe, effective, FDA-approved solutions. And guess what? MIDI care is covered by insurance. So stop pushing through it alone. Schedule a virtual visit and dive deep into your unique symptoms and health background. You'll walk away feeling heard and with a plan to start feeling better. Visit MIDI Health today and reclaim your well-being. You deserve to feel great. Book your virtual visit today at joinmidi.com. That's joinmidi.com. joinmidi.com.
Yeah, man, that self-abandonment thing, I think was such a kick in the face to me to realize that's what I had been doing most of my life, if not at least my adult life, of just spending so much time. And again, as girls and women, we're conditioned to put everyone's needs before our own, at the detriment of our own humanity. I mean, for the sake of sounding dramatic,
Yeah.
at the detriment of our own humanity, and the constant self-abandonment, the constant not listening to my own instincts, questioning my instincts, and just almost I was running around with orange cones, making sure everybody was okay, and then resenting them when they weren't grateful for all of the,
Well, yeah.
I mean, talk about codependence,
Right.
just being mad at them for not really acknowledging how much work I was doing for them and how great I was.
But feeling stuck
just
to continue doing it because that's what good women do. That's what good mothers do. You're running this script.
I felt like I was doing my job.
Yeah.
And why wasn't I being rewarded for it?
Right. Or appreciated, or why am I so miserable if I'm doing the thing I'm supposed to be doing? Why isn't this making me feel like happy? Why isn't this
So
fulfilling?
the cycle starts all over.
Yeah.
So we try hard instead of telling the truth, like we try harder with codependence, or we drink more, or we use more, or we chase relationships more. And and I think like everybody gets to the point where they sort of fall on their face, and you can call it rock bottom. You can call it falling on your face. You can call it just, like not being able to take another step, doing the thing that you're doing anymore. I want to point out too, and I would love your take on this, like the work is never ending. Like you and I have years, probably a couple decades between the two of us, but still.
I know you never like arrive, but it does get better and easier.
Yeah.
It gets
I'll tell you what,
different.
telling the truth like feels so much better than lying to yourself. Wouldn't you say?
I don't have the capacity to anymore. Like
I know, me neither.
I know how sick it will make me. And the thing is, like, when you take the steps to create a life that is more integrated, what the way I thought of it was, I wrote in like 2014 when I was starting to get sober, I wrote on a piece of paper in my journal, one version. And that was like what I wanted, one version of myself in the world instead of all the different versions, because I had a version of myself that would be with you and a different friend and the men I was dating and my family. And it was all about secrets and like managing perceptions and not, withholding certain truths so that I could keep, your good opinion of me and all of that. And that is exhausting. It's painful. But in recovery, I have what honesty does is it allows you to create, to integrate into one version. Right. And it's not that I'm the same person with you that I am with like my boyfriend, but I don't have any secrets.
Yeah.
Right. I can choose privacy. I can choose to withhold, but I'm showing up as I actually am. And once you do that, there's just so much less of a burden. Like life is still life. Shit still happens. Pain, we're going to lose shit and we're going to have a heartbreak, and our kids are going to test us and hurt us, and all the things, people are going to die, and all the same things still happen. But because there's not a bunch of filler in between like who I actually am in the world and all these secrets I'm trying to keep, I can just show up.
Yeah. So
it's not that, recovery work or life doesn't change, it doesn't end, but man, it gets so much easier. And I would say too, like I have just felt that in the past 2 years. Like it took that long for me to feel. I moved my website recently, so I was like reading old blog posts from 2016, 17, 18. I'm like, God, everything was so hard. Like I can just feel it in my words, Everything was a struggle. Not everything, but I was in a lot of pain a lot of the time. And there were major parts of my life that were really painful and stressful. I had a lot of cleanup to do.
Yeah. Here's how I describe it. And I'm curious how you feel about this. I describe it as, now I understand, because before I didn't trust that I could walk through something hard or that I could tell the truth. And like and that's why I would either drink or, do all these behaviors in order to avoid that. Now I know it's going to hurt, and I know that I'm going to be okay on the other end. And on a really great day, I know I'm going to be better for it on the other end.
Right. You can already see that.
So it's like, it's like that understanding and trusting myself, and like the no longer self-abandoning, just like trusting myself and trusting my heart that I have the resilience to be okay on the other end. Like I'm going to live through it. And before I thought I would die.
Yeah, I would say that's true for me as well. Nadia Boltz-Weber, I interviewed her a while back, and she said she's got like 30 years of sobriety. And she said, we were talking about the pandemic, and she said she, feels like recovery actually prepared her for the pandemic, because she has this incredible weight bearing structure now and has like, that's it. Like I can handle stuff, and it's not that I'm invincible, and I still have meltdowns and I can be hurt, but There's an incredible weight-bearing structure because you've walked through, you know what you're actually capable of. Mm-hmm. You've walked through that pain in an honest and real way, and it didn't annihilate you. Mm-hmm. And so you build strength from that. And you stop fearing the pain. Like that's, I think, the main thing. It's like, you don't want the pain.
No.
But you don't see it as a problem.
Well, you don't see it as like, it's going to be the death of me.
Yeah. Or that there's something wrong with you.
Right. I make it less about me than I used to as well. So even before, like if my husband and I were in couples counseling or something, and there'd be a question that I wanted to ask him, but I'd be afraid of the answer. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like, you know, that feeling where you're like, I'm really curious about this. And it's been like bugging me in my gut. But if he answers me the way I don't, it's going to be so painful and I'm going to feel so rejected and abandoned. I'm just going to pretend like this question does not.
Absolutely.
Not a thing. Now, I still don't want to hear the answer that I don't want to hear. But like, it's so interesting now. It's almost like I'm a narrator of my own life. Like I watch it happen and I'm like, wow, that fucking hurt.
Well, that didn't go very well.
That sucked. And I can still walk out of this office and take a full breath into my lungs. And I'm still me and I'm still loved. And it just that I can tell you like the separation of making someone's feelings about me, like truly not about me, if I'm making sense, like it's about them. And I know it's so easy to like read those words in self-help books and stuff, but like when you can really integrate that, I love that you use that word. That to me is worth all the sobriety because I had a hard time with that. I always made it about me.
Well, there's a saying in AA, and I don't love everything that AA says, but man, they get a lot of things right.
They do have a lot of good sayings.
There's a lot that's right with that program, but there's this concept called the obsession of self, and that's like one of the main afflictions. And I wouldn't say it even just belongs to people who are addicted. It's, I think, people who experience trauma and a lot of pain. And that the obsession of self sounds like, oh, I think I'm so amazing, but it's not that. It's just, I think of myself so much. Everything is about me. And I'm constantly making
a reflection of me.
I'm constantly making up stories about what you think of me or if you say you have a reaction to something that seems like it's negative, and I automatically make that about me. You canceled plans because you were busy. Oh, she doesn't care about me. She doesn't like me. Oh, she must be talking about me. It's like very like my daughter's 13. It's like being in a 13-year-old's mind where they actually are self-obsessed. Their egos are trying to form and all that. And so it's living like that.
What do they call it for teenagers? The invisible audience. I've heard parenting experts call it that.
God. That sounds.
They think like everybody's talking about me. And it's like, literally no one
know. But I mean, that it feels like it feels real. And when you are in that, and it's especially acute for people that struggle with addiction, because you are doing things that are regretful and shameful. And so you've got this added layer of like, oh, they know. Or I'm going to be found out. And it just like constant obsession of self that has lifted.
Okay, everyone. The book is called Push Off From Here, 9 Essential Truths to Get You Through Sobriety and Everything Else. Laura McKowen, thank you so much for being here. We could talk for another hour.
Good to see you.
I got through only like 3 of the 5 questions I wanted to ask you. We'll put the book in the show notes and your site and all of your social media stuff. And I just appreciate your friendship and I appreciate you and your writing. And it's so helpful to people. And where do you want everyone to go? Do you want them to go to the book or somewhere else?
Well, I want people to buy the book.
Yeah, always.
No, the best place to find me is probably like with all the stuff is my website. It's just my name.
LauraMcKowen.com. And that'll be in the show notes. Thank you so much. And everyone, thank you. I'm so grateful that you're here and that you choose to spend your time with me. And remember, it's our life's journey to make ourselves better humans and our life's responsibility to make the world a better place. Bye for now. Hey, did you know there's free secret podcast episodes waiting for you that are not part of my regular podcast feed? Yes. AndreaOwen.com/free. And you just sign up.
You get a link sent to you. It's very secret. It's like a secret club. We don't have a secret handshake. Don't worry about that. But it's these motivating podcast episodes that I made for you. They're under 20 minutes each. There's 3 of them. They're for wherever you are in your life. So head on over there and grab them. They range from really supporting you and seeing you where you are and being compassionate, all the way to giving you a giant kick in your ass and telling you how amazing and gorgeous and phenomenal you are. So AndreaOwen.com/free and get your hands on that free podcast feed.
I'd like to introduce you to the Minimalist Moms podcast. It's hard enough being a mom, and the last thing you need is stress from too much stuff and an overcrowded schedule. For too long, I lived with the mindset that bigger was better, and the more I added to my life, instead of feeling better, I felt overwhelmed. It was time for a radical new mindset. Less is more. I'm not into extremes. I didn't throw everything away. My brand of minimalism is more about adding than subtracting. Get rid of the excess to make room for what you love. In other words, it's about living life with purpose. I hope you'll listen in, and my guest and myself can inspire you to think more and do with less. The Minimalist Moms podcast, available wherever you listen to podcasts.